Now it's time for another Board Game Brawl preview with Nick Meanahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com. Hey folks, today we're going to take a look at a game that is currently seeking funding on Kickstarter. That game is called Luminous Ages, and it's from the designer Anthony Cristo. Now, if you like what you see throughout the rest of this preview video, I'm going to encourage you to go to the official Kickstarter project page. There's going to be a link up in the top corner of your screen, as well as down in the description section underneath this video. Those links will take you to the page. You can find out more information and hopefully consider backing the project. Now, Luminous Ages is an expandable card game. You're going to have a core set of cards, but there's also boosters that you can buy in order to add more cards into the game. And it's also a variable game because you can play either as a one-on-one versus mode, you can play a multiplayer mode, you can play as cooperative multiplayer, and so on and so forth. The theme of the game is that there are these dream creatures who are trying to bring forth their dragon god and wipe out your opponent's dream creatures and dragon gods. You have structures and dreamlands that are going to help you bring that about. There's tons of different types of creatures, terrestrial creatures, dream creatures, the dragons, of course, creatures that summon other creatures, spells, artifacts, lots of different things. So let me go ahead and give you a brief look at some of the components of the game and some of the gameplay that you can expect to find. Of course, this is a prototype version of the game, so please keep that in mind. There's going to be additional stuff in the final version of the game. You can go to the Kickstarter page and see all kinds of different stuff that's going to be in the final version. But just keep that in mind as you go through this overview. But then we're going to come back, we'll discuss it further. Luminous Ages is a competitive card game for 2 players and potentially up to 6 players if you play with different game modes, such as cooperative and multiplayer cooperative, known as Dragon modes. We'll focus on the 2-player competitive mode, but just so you know, Dragon cooperative mode involves all the players working together to defeat the dragon gods, while a competitive variant of that involves the players trying to be the ones to deal the most damage to those dragons. The goal of the Versus game is to win in one of 2 ways, either by draining your opponent's dream life down to -10, or gaining 30 dream life and bringing your dragon god into play and keeping him in play. Dream life can be gained in multiple ways, usually by playing cards like core lands or any dream cards and gain life equal to their value. You can also take lands from opponents or destroy their structures in order to gain life. The other currency in the game is Dream Energy, which can be gained from lands by tilting them once per turn and gaining energy equal to the stars in their description, and then waiting for them to untilt to use again. Dream Energy is used to summon creatures, artifacts, and spells. Before the game, every player will have a deck that they construct, which must have at least 60 cards and must follow certain rules for how many of each type of cards you can have in the deck. There are 4 types of lands: core lands, dream structures, and quest lands. Undefended lands are prone to attack and draining by your opponent, so you'll have to put creatures on them to protect them. The field is broken up into 2 main zones: Oniro, the dream zone where cards like your god card reside until they're summoned, and the Equatoria, the main zone where played cards reside. Each turn you'll be putting out your core lands or quest lands, 1 per turn. Dream lands and dream structures must be played on top of your core lands. It's possible to drain and destroy undefended lands, taking their energy as your own, and then, if you deal 8 damage with your creatures, totally destroying it. But of course, remember, the goal is to knock out your opponent's dream life. Creatures are split into 3 types: the white, green, and gold Tranquil, the black and red Mare, and the purple, brown, and blue neutrals, which work well with both of the other factions. Your dragon god is another avenue to victory. To play it, you'll need to have 30 dream life at the end of your turn, and to win it needs to stay in play for 3 rounds. However, it can be killed just like other creatures in the game, and it becomes unsummoned if you ever dip below 30 health before you win the game. Dream creatures are powerful creatures that provide you with dream life when played, but will make you lose that dream life if they're killed. Legendary creatures are also rare and extremely powerful. Quest creatures give bonuses when used for questing, and also give you life when played and take it away when they die. There are also royals, standard creatures, and token creatures, which are actually summoned by other creatures. And of course, there are spells and artifact cards. It's important to note that there are many different creature special abilities, such as flying, shield, and so on, and this is an important aspect of constructing your deck. A main turn in the game is broken down into phases, with one player randomly going first. Each player starts off drawing 8 cards. You'll start off drawing a card on your turn and untilting your land and creatures. And then you have the opportunity to play more cards from your hand or your Nero, or send them on quest to your quest lands to activate their abilities. And of course, you may have an attack phase to try and drain and destroy your opponent's lands and knock out their dream life to win the game. If you can summon and keep your Dragon God in play, or knock your opponent down to -10, you win the game. At first blush, Luminous Ages seems familiar. When you look at a competitive card game that is expandable, and there are a lot of games like that out there, but the devil's in the details, and there are a lot of different and interesting things about this game, different ways that they went about developing the game to give it its own unique flavor and flair to it. So you look at the fact that you have all these different types of lands. Lands are incredibly important in this game, and how you build them up as well. So it's sort of a resource management type of game in that sense as well, because you start off with your core lands, but then you need to build those up into your dream lands. You want to have quest lands out in play as well, and these are all different types of resources that you need to use effectively to get dream energy, to get dream life, to bring out your creatures, to protect those lands. You need to worry about all these different types of things, but of course the goal of the game is to take out your opponent, so you need to focus on that as well. But you might decide that the other path that you want to go down is to try and bring out your Dragon God. That's another very interesting aspect of the game, because that's easier said than done. You need to get yourself up to that 30 dream life just to bring him or her out, and then you need to also keep him or her out in play, or it, I suppose. Keep it in play long enough for you to win the game, which is way easier said than done, of course, because your opponent is just not going to sit there and let that happen without a fight. So there's a lot of interesting things just going on there. But then, as I mentioned in the overview and in my intro, there's just a lot of different variety of creatures in this game. Creatures that have different special effects. You can send, there's special creatures who are really good at questing, so you want to send them on over to your quest lands in order to take full advantage of that. But other ones are perhaps better suited as defenders for your lands. There's royal creatures that are even more powerful, and of course you're playing these not just to defend yourself and to potentially attack your opponent and drain their lands, which is another interesting thing you can do, but you also need to be playing them in order to get your own dream life and so on. But to do that, you need dream energy. So there's this give and take back and forth between having these two different types of resources and all the different cards that give them to you, and trying to maintain a balance there while still working towards your goals in order to win the game. Now, because there's such a large variety of cards, that means it's very, very expandable, and you can find out more information about that by going to the Kickstarter page and what the booster packs cost and things like that. There's different pledge levels. But just to give you that sense, because there's so many different types and variety of cards, it means there's a lot of potential room for the game to grow if it's your thing. And like I said, there's different game modes as well. I just basically detailed the important bits about the versus mode and things that could carry over into other modes. But there's a full cooperative game mode. There's a game mode that functions like the cooperative game mode, but instead you're trying to compete for points as well against the other players, not just trying to take each other out. So lots of different ways to play the game, perhaps even more on the horizon. If you want to know more about the game, more than I can even tell you here, you definitely need to go to the Kickstarter project page. You don't have to take my word for it. Follow the link in the top corner of your screen, as well as down in the description section underneath this video. Those links will take you to the page. You can find out more information and hopefully consider backing Luminous Ages from designer Anthony Cristo. Thank you so much for watching and for supporting our sponsors. Take care. Hey folks, I'm sorry, just one quick little side note that I wanted to throw out there. As you may have noticed when I was showing off the cards in the overview, there's a lot of really high quality artwork in the game, but as it turns out, you can actually put yourself into the game. You have the chance to make your own unique characters at certain pledge levels in the Kickstarter campaign. You can be put into the game onto the artwork of the cards, as well as create different types of artifacts and magic spells and things like that. If you want to find out more information, like I said, go to the Kickstarter page following those links and you can find out more. But I just wanted to throw that out there because it might be a very neat idea if you wanted to be in the game. Take care. Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.